This is why you never finish what you start and how you can finally fix it. You know the sting of unfinished goals, half-done projects, and promises you never kept to yourself. It eats at your confidence, convinces you that maybe you're not disciplined enough, not strong enough, not built to finish. But that's a lie. The real reason runs deeper, hidden in a cycle most people never escape. And once you see it, you'll finally understand why nothing ever sticks and how to break free starting today. So let's begin with the brutal truth about the cycle that keeps you trapped. The cycle of starting and quitting, the thrill of starting something new is undeniable. A fresh project, a new routine, a bold idea, there's an immediate rush that makes it feel like progress has already been made. The book is bought, the checklist written, the workspace cleared. In that moment, everything feels possible. The beginning holds a kind of magic. A clean slate with no mistakes, no failures, only the dream of what could be. In those first moments, it isn't just the project that feels exciting, it's the future version of oneself that seems within reach. But that initial high never lasts. It fades slowly, like air leaking out of a balloon. At first, the effort continues, the energy still carries things forward. Then resistance creeps in, a day is skipped, an excuse is made, a promise is postponed with the thought, it will get done tomorrow. But tomorrow arrives heavier than expected, and momentum feels weaker than before. The excitement that once drove progress begins to disappear, and the work suddenly feels harder. Progress slows, sometimes to the point of invisibility, and questions start to form. Is this even worth it? That's when doubt slips in. A voice whispers, maybe this isn't the right path. Maybe it won't work. Maybe it's time to try something else. And more often than not, the project is abandoned. The damage doesn't stop with the unfinished task. Each abandonment chips away at trust. The pile of unfinished things doesn't just sit on a desk, it lingers in the mind, weighing heavily. Over time, it creates a story that nothing is ever finished, that follow-through isn't possible, that promises can't be kept. And when that story repeats often enough, it begins to shape identity. This is the cycle, the thrill at the start, the grind in the middle, the slow fade at the end. Repeat it again and again until it feels normal, but the truth is different. It isn't laziness. It isn't weakness. It's a trap, one so common it often goes unnoticed. And once the real reasons behind it are seen clearly, the cycle no longer has the same power, because the reasons things are left unfinished rarely have anything to do with effort or discipline. They lie deeper, hidden beneath the surface. And until those reasons are uncovered, the same cycle will keep repeating. The hidden reasons you never finish, it's easy to think. The reason you never finish is because you're lazy. That's the story you've probably told yourself. If only I worked harder, if only I had more discipline, if only I pushed myself like other people do. That story haunts you. It makes you believe you're weak. But that isn't the truth. The real reasons you quit have nothing to do with laziness. They run deeper, hidden in plain sight, shaping your choices without you even realizing. The first hidden reason is perfectionism. You don't just want to do things, you want to do them flawlessly. If you pick up a new skill, you want to master it immediately. If you start a business, you want it to succeed overnight. The moment reality doesn't match the perfect picture in your head, you feel like a failure, and instead of pushing through, you give up. Perfectionism pretends to be high standards, but it's really just fear of being seen trying and not being good enough. The second reason is overload. You start too many things at once. A new workout plan, a new side hustle, a new book, a new habit. At first it feels exciting, like you are reinventing your life. But the truth is, spreading yourself too thin means you make real progress on nothing. Every project pulls your energy in a different direction until you burn out. Overload doesn't feel like quitting at first, it feels like ambition. But in the end, it leaves you with a graveyard of half-finished dreams. The third reason is fear of judgment. You don't want people to see you fail, so you quit before they can. If you abandon the project early, no one can say you weren't good enough. You tell yourself you're protecting your pride, but really, you're sabotaging yourself. Because when you stop finishing to avoid judgment, you guarantee the very thing you fear to prove to yourself and to others that you don't follow through. And the fourth reason is a lack of structure. For years, you've probably relied on motivation. You wait until you feel inspired. You wait until the mood is right. And yes, sometimes it works for a day, maybe a week. But the moment life gets messy, the motivation disappears, and so does your progress. Without a system, you're at the mercy of your moods. And moods are unreliable. Look back at your own life, and you'll see these patterns everywhere. The perfectionism that made you give up too soon, the overload that drained your energy, the fear of judgment that held you back, the lack of structure that made you inconsistent. These aren't random mistakes. They're predictable traps, and unless you recognize them, you'll keep falling into them again and again. That's why finishing has nothing to do with discipline. Even the most disciplined people fall if they don't escape these traps. The real problem isn't effort, it's identity, because underneath every one of those reasons is the same truth. You don't see yourself as a finisher. You see yourself as someone who starts strong but fades away, and every unfinished thing you leave behind only proves that story right. But the moment you stop seeing yourself as a starter and decide to become a finisher, everything begins to shift. That's the missing link. That's the breakthrough that changes everything. The identity shift. For most of your life, you've probably believed the problem was discipline. You thought that if you just worked harder, pushed yourself longer, or forced yourself to care more, you'd finally finish the things you started. But no matter how many times you tried, you always ended up in the same place, halfway done, burned out, and eventually quitting. That's when it becomes clear the problem isn't effort. The problem is identity. You've been carrying the identity of a starter, not a finisher. And the proof is everywhere. The half-written journal, the workout routine that lasted 2 weeks, the courses abandoned halfway through. Each unfinished thing is like a mirror, reflecting back a story about who you are. And the more you see that story, the more you live it out. Identity is powerful. When you believe you're the kind of person who doesn't finish, your actions bend to match that belief. You don't push as hard when things get difficult. You hesitate when progress feels slow. You give up quicker because, in your mind, that's just who you are. Someone who starts strong but never makes it to the end. But identity can also set you free. The day you decide that you are not just a starter, you are a finisher, is the day everything begins to shift. At first, it feels strange, almost like a lie. But the more you claim it, the more your choices begin to align with it. Every finished page, every completed workout, every project brought to the end is a vote for your new identity. And with each vote, the story gets stronger. You prove yourself right in a new way. That's the life-changing secret. Finishing isn't about trying harder. It's about becoming someone new. It's about deciding you are a finisher before the evidence even shows up. Because once you adopt that identity, your actions follow. You stop quitting so easily. You stop making excuses. You begin proving yourself right in the best possible way, be finishing. But here's the challenge. Identity alone isn't enough. You can call yourself a finisher, but life will still pull at you. Distractions will still try to steal your focus. Old habits will try to drag you back. And if you're relying on identity alone, you'll slip. That's when you need something stronger than mindset. You need momentum. Why motivation fails you for the longest time. I was hooked on motivation. I waited for it, like people wait for the weather to change, hoping tomorrow would bring the perfect mood, the perfect spark, the perfect rush of energy that would finally carry me through. And when it came, it felt incredible. I'd get fired up, start working, and convince myself that this time was different. But it never lasted. Because motivation is a liar. It shows up when it wants to, not when you need it most. It gives you a burst of excitement at the beginning, then disappears the moment things get hard. And when you're left sitting there, staring at the same project you were so excited about just days ago, the silence is deafening. You start asking yourself, why don't I feel like doing this anymore? What's wrong with me? And then the shame sets in. I've lived that cycle too many times to count. I'd get a surge of motivation, start something big, and then crash the second the feeling ran out. And every time it happened, I blamed myself. I told myself I was weak, undisciplined, broken. But the truth is, the problem wasn't me, it was the system I was relying on. Motivation isn't a system, it's a spark. And sparks don't last long enough to build anything real. That's when I realized finishing has nothing to do with motivation. It has everything to do with momentum. Motivation is about feelings. Momentum is about action. Motivation says, it'll work when I feel ready. Momentum says, it'll work until I feel ready. And that's a massive difference. Think of a rocket launch. Most of the energy is spent just getting off the ground. Once it breaks free of gravity, the rest gets easier. That's momentum. In my life, the projects I actually finished weren't the ones I felt most motivated about. They were the ones where I forced myself to build momentum, even when I didn't feel like it. And once that momentum kicked in, finishing became almost automatic. That realization changed everything for me. It meant I didn't need to wait for motivation anymore. I didn't need to feel ready, inspired, or in the mood. I just needed to find a way to create momentum, one small push at a time. And that's when I built the system that saved Mathe, one rule that finally turned me into a finisher. It was simple, almost too simple, just 1 hour a day. But that single hour, protected and repeated, became the engine that carried me further than motivation ever could. I call it the 1 hour rule. The 1 hour rule, by now, you understand that momentum matters more than motivation. But the real question is this: how do you create momentum when life is constantly pulling you in every direction, when every day feels like a tug of war between what matters and what distracts you? The answer is deceptively simple: 1 hour. Just one clean, protected hour every single day. Here's the truth: you don't fail because you don't have enough time. You fail because you don't protect the time you already have. Think about it. How many times have you told yourself, if only I had an entire day free, I'd finally catch up? If I had a week off, I'd finally get ahead. But then the free time arrives, and what happens? You waste it. You scroll, you drift, you putter around convincing yourself you're getting ready. And by the end of the day, nothing important has moved. The time was there, you just didn't protect it. That's why you need the 1 hour rule. 1 hour that belongs entirely to you and your mission. No phone, no emails, no interruptions. Just one solid, focused block of time where you push the one thing forward that matters most. You'd be shocked at what happens when you give yourself that gift. At first it feels small, almost laughable. 60 minutes against the mountain of unfinished goals you've been carrying for years. How could that possibly matter? But that's the trap. You don't conquer a mountain by staring at it or wishing it away. You move it by chipping at it, a little at a time, day after day, hour by hour. And the miracle of momentum is that the little doesn't stay little. Small steps compound, they grow, and suddenly something that once felt impossible starts to bend. And here's where it gets powerful. Once you start finishing in that single hour, your identity begins to shift. You stop thinking, I am someone who never follows through, and you start believing, I am someone who can be trusted to finish. Every hour you protect is another vote for that identity. The more votes you cast, the stronger it gets. Before long, you aren't just building projects, you're rebuilding yourself. But don't mistake this for easy. Protecting that 1 hour is a battle. The world will try to steal it every chance it gets. Your phone will buzz with updates that can wait. Your inbox will scream for attention that isn't urgent. People will show up with just one quick thing that derails your focus. And sometimes the biggest thief isn't out there, it's inside your own head. It's that subtle voice whispering, you can skip today. It's just 1 hour. It won't matter, but it does matter, because skipping 1 hour isn't just losing 60 minutes, it's breaking the chain. It's shattering the momentum you've worked so hard to build. And worse, it's feeding the old story you're trying to escape, the story that says you're someone who starts but never finishes. That's why this 1 hour has to be treated as sacred, untouchable, non-negotiable, like oxygen, like survival, because in many ways it is. This is the hour that rebuilds your future one day at a time. This is the hour that transforms you from someone who waits for motivation into someone who creates momentum. But here's the part most people miss. You can only unlock the true power of the 1 hour rule if you know how to protect it. Because focus isn't lost in the middle of the hour, it's lost in the 5 minutes before it even begins. And unless you learn to guard those 5 minutes with everything you've got, the world will steal them. And once those minutes are gone, so is your hour. And that's why the next step is crucial. You need more than good intentions. You need a system, a defense strong enough to guard your focus like your life depends on it, because it does. Guarding your focus, you probably think the hardest part of the 1 hour rule is showing up for the hour itself. But the truth is, the real battle begins before the hour even starts. Most people don't lose their focus halfway through, they lose it in the first 5 minutes. Here's how it happens. You sit down ready to begin. You've cleared the time, you've made the commitment. But just before you start, you make one small mistake. You check your phone, you glance at email, you peek at messages just for a second, and every single time, that second becomes the thief of the entire hour. Not because you're lazy, but because your mind has already been hijacked before it even got the chance to focus. That's when you realize something terrifying. The moment before you begin is the most fragile part of the process. That's when your brain is hunting for any excuse, any reason, any distraction to avoid the discomfort of deep work. If you don't protect that entry point, the hour is lost before it even begins. So how do you defend it? You build what I call a 3-layer shield for your focus. The first layer is ritual. You make your hour predictable. Same time, same place, same trigger. No decisions, no debates, no variety. Just a simple sequence that tells your brain, this is focus time. The more you repeat it, the stronger it gets. Eventually, it becomes muscle memory. You sit in the chair, and your brain slips into the state automatically. It doesn't negotiate with you anymore, it just obeys the ritual. The second layer is environment. If your surroundings scream chaos, your mind will feel chaos. But if your environment whispers clarity, your mind finally has room to think. That means stripping away distractions before they can even reach you. Close the tabs, silence the phone, clear the desk until only one thing remains the task that matters most today. When your environment is clean, it doesn't fight against you. It fights for you. The third layer is boundaries. This is the hardest one, but it changes everything. You tell the people around you that this 1 hour is non-negotiable. No interruptions, no exceptions. At first, it feels uncomfortable, you worry, they won't respect it. But here's the truth, when you respect your hour, others will too. You teach them how to treat your time by the way you protect it. When all three layers are in place, the difference is staggering. Without protection, your hour leaks away before it even begins. But with protection, the hour becomes nuclear. The depth of focus skyrockets. Ideas flow faster. Problems that once felt impossible start to unravel. And most importantly, you begin to finish. Not someday, not eventually, but now. Guarding your focus teaches you a truth you'll carry for the rest of your life. The world will always try to steal your time, your energy, your attention, but it only succeeds if you let it. When you draw a line around your hour, you're not just protecting your time, you are protecting your future. And that protection changes everything. Because the moment you finish your first project, after years of quitting, something inside you shifts. You realize you're no longer just doing tasks, you're becoming someone new. You're crossing the invisible line from starter to finisher. That's when the real transformation begins. Becoming a finisher, the first time you actually finish something after years of quitting, it feels unreal. You sit there staring at the completed project, almost in disbelief. For so long, finishing has felt foreign. Starting was easy, quitting was familiar, but finishing? That was new territory. And the strangest part isn't the result itself, it's how you feel about yourself. For years, you've carried the identity of someone who couldn't follow through. Every unfinished goal has whispered the same story: you don't finish. You never finish. But the moment you prove that story wrong, everything inside you begins to shift. At first, the change is subtle. You finish one thing, then another. Maybe there's small finishing, a workout, finishing a book, finishing a task you used to procrastinate on. But every completion matters. Each one is like a vote for a new identity. Each one says, you can trust yourself again, and the more votes you cast, the louder that new story becomes. That's when you finally understand something powerful. Finishing isn't about the size of the goal, it's about the proof you give yourself. A finished page, a finished plan, a finished hour of deep work, they all compound into something bigger. They build a track record, they rebuild your trust. And trust in yourself is everything. Because when you trust yourself to finish, hesitation disappears. You don't waste energy wondering if you'll stick with it this time, you just do. You don't need endless pep talks or bursts of motivation, because your identity carries you. You're no longer pretending to be a finisher, you are one. And here's where the magic really happens. Once you start finishing in one area, the effect ripples outward. You begin finishing in other parts of your life too. You show up differently in your work. You follow through in your relationships. You carry yourself with more confidence. You feel more grounded, more capable, more alive. Finishing reshapes who you are, and who you are reshapes what you're capable of. That's the real reward, because the projects you complete are important, but the person you become in the process is priceless. And that's the bridge to the final step. Because the real magic isn't just in what you finish, it's in the ultimate payoff, freedom, the clarity, the self-trust that finishing gives you. And once you experience that, you'll never want to go back. Why finishing changes everything. When you look back at your life before you learn to finish, what you see is chaos. A trail of half-built bridges, each one leading nowhere. Books bought but never read. Habits started with fire and abandoned in silence. Projects frozen in time, waiting for a future version of you that never arrived. And with every unfinished thing, you carried the same heavy-weight belief that maybe you just weren't enough, that maybe you were the kind of person who could dream, but never close the gap. Someone built to start, but not built to complete. But finishing shatters that lie. The moment you start finishing Jivan, the small things, everything changes. Your confidence grows, not because the work is perfect, but because it's done. Done becomes more powerful than perfect. Done becomes proof. Proof that you can be trusted. Proof that you aren't broken. Proof that you are capable of far more than you imagine. And that proof ripples into every corner of your life. Suddenly, you aren't just finishing tasks or walking differently, talking differently, showing up differently. You carry yourself with more certainty. You no longer drown in guilt or excuses because you have evidentiarial evidence that you can finish what you start. That weight you used to carry, it begins to lift. And in its place, you feel pride, you feel clarity, you feel free. That's what finishing really gives you. Not just results, but relief. Not just progress, but power. It rebuilds the one thing that years of quitting has stolen from your self-trust. And once you have that back, nothing is the same. Because finishing was never just about the project. It was about the person you were becoming all along. Every hour you protect, every project you complete, is a vote for a new identity. You're not a starter anymore. You're not a quitter. You are a finisher. And finishers live differently. Finishers love differently. Finishers lead differently. That's why I'll tell you this. Starters are everywhere. You see them all the time, people who get excited, people who dream, people who begin. But finishers, they're rare. They're the ones who quietly, consistently, relentlessly keep going until something is complete. They're the ones who leave behind not just ideas, but legacies. And the moment you decide to finish what you start, you join them. The moment you draw the line and say, no more half done, no more excuses, no more later, your life will never look the same. So here's your challenge. Don't start something new. Don't chase the next shiny idea. Instead, go back. Go back to something you abandoned. Dust it off, pick it up. Give it one sacred hour a day until it's done. No distractions, no interruptions. Just you, your focus, and your commitment to finish. Because finishing isn't about doing more. It's about becoming more. And when you finish, you reclaim something priceless, or belief in yourself. And once you have that, there is nothing you cannot build, nothing you cannot change, nothing you cannot create. The difference between a half-lived life and a fully alive one is whether you finish what you start.